Hello everybody, my name is Tim Skipper. I am a amateur artist, do comic books and fantasy work, and I own my own business, so I don't make my living from selling artwork, but since I own my own business, I get to kind of set my own schedule, and I do some art commissions on the side, a lot of stuff for myself. So started experimenting with some sketch covers, and I did some several years ago. Several years ago, and just came back to them. And I did this one last night. It's okay. I don't hate it, but I'm not thrilled with it, with the way it turned out. I ain't gonna lie. I have a hard time with unusual foreshortening poses, but this is not the first one I did last night. I did another one that I liked better. It was this has artwork on the back. The other one was like the Spawn. It was a double page, and it was a Spider-Man, and I was going to do it the same way with the artwork like that. And I was able to stretch the pose out more, but it got ruined because I tried to white out up here where the title is with this stuff. Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White. Now, I've never used this stuff before. Experimented with it a little bit, just some like scribbles, but never really used it in a project. And I put it on, let it dry, then hit it with an hair dryer. Yeah, that would be the word. And made sure it was good and dry, and then started doing some ink work over it, and it just started falling completely apart. Smudged and bled all over the paper and ruined the cover. So I had to trash it. So this was recommended by an artist, and I don't remember his name, who's worked for Marvel and DC. I saw it on YouTube, and this should not be recommended. This stuff is crap. So if you see this stuff, don't spend $10. Don't buy it. To date, I have never bought anything from Dr. Martin's that I thought was worth the money, and this is no exception. So anyway, back in the trash that goes. This one did, and like I said, I haven't done a sketch cover in a long time, and I put something down I didn't like, and I kind of thought this was, some kind of Bristol board. I don't know what kind of paper it is, but it's not Bristol, because I put some water on this, and I don't know if the camera's gonna pick this up, but the paper completely just ripped up on me. And I always put a piece of paper in here so as not to damage the interior, but you can see it messed up there. Pretty cheap paper. I was kind of very disappointed in that. Given the fact that Marvel stories lately have pretty much sucked, they could at least make a decent product, put out a decent paper, but what do I know? I'm just a 40-year fan of comic books. I haven't learned anything. So I'll let someone like Bob Iger tell me how I'm supposed to think. Oh, by the way, when you come on this channel, if I say stuff that offends you, I apologize, but I don't apologize because I say what I think, and if you don't like it, well, you don't have to. I'm blunt. Did law enforcement for several years, so when I was younger, my knees could handle jumping over fences. So anyway, I wanted to do a Spawn cover, and I'm going to try. I may change my mind as I work on this and I see the quality of the paper, how it holds up to mediums, but I honestly want to try and make this a small acrylic painting. Obviously I can't do a lot of heavy water washes, and it's gonna be a lot of very little water, medium and stuff like that to make glazes maybe, but can't put a lot of water on this. It's obviously not that thick. But I may change my mind once I get started. I may not want to ruin it. And I'm not going to talk through this whole thing because who wants to hear me talk for the next couple of hours? And I will speed up the process at certain points. So if you decide to watch this you won't be bored completely out of your mind. And I only come back and talk when I think there's something, you know, to talk about, like a technique or something I've learned that I think you might find useful. Anyway, I did a little thumbnail. This is some scrap paper from this pad that's underneath my Spawn comic. And I just did a thumbnail. I want to kind of keep it simple, nothing hard, nothing too extravagant. I did several little thumbnails of, you know, Spawn standing with his cape wrapped around him, which is kind of why I picked it, because I figured if this falls apart, you know, by drawing pretty much just his head and cape, I'll kind of keep my time limit from being too much, and I won't feel like I wasted a whole bunch of time. And so we're going to try that. And got a big sketch pad underneath here. Mainly that is because my desk has paint stains and eraser stains and graphite dust and everything else on it. And since I've got the book spread out with the interior pages face down, I thought I'd protect it from getting damaged, since it's not just the back of a piece of paper. So, got a Prismacolor color erase non-copy blue pencil. I usually don't use these, so we're gonna try it out. May not like it, may switch to something else. And the only thing I got with me right now is a eraser, and then a kneaded eraser. And then once we get into actual final rendering, where I'm having to tighten up the lines, I'll probably get another eraser out. They'll let me get into the small spots. And I've marked my paper here with the bottom, so hopefully as I'm twisting this, I won't drop out of frame. So let's see what I do. And like I said, I'll probably start here in the next couple of minutes, fast running this at increase the frame rate, so that, you know, it plays faster, so you don't have to sit and watch the board and stuff. And I don't have to talk the whole time, because I don't have that much to say. So let's get started. So that was like a little quick jaunt. That blue is barely visible, and kind of looking at my camera screen, I doubt you can even see it. This is one of my favorite sketching pencils, and sadly they no longer sell these in individuals. I went and bought every one I could find on Amazon, but this is Prismacolor's Color Erase Carmine Red. I love sketching with this pencil. Pretty much all my sketches, thumbnails and stuff that goes in my sketchbook are done in this pencil. I generally don't use it on something that's going to be final art, because even though it says color erase, it technically does not actually color erase. It always leaves a faint thing. But since I know I'm going to either do acrylics, or I will come back in with marker over this, and if I do color, Spawn's cape is red anyway, I'll use it, because I like the way the lead feels on paper. It's very soft, and I don't know, it just feels right. And if you draw, you'll understand that sometimes the lead of a pencil just feels right to your hand, the way it moves across the page. you can kind of see that in my light rough. Let me put the Spider-Man out of the way so I don't get paint on it. I think that's enough of a lay-in for me that I can kind of finish this out and detail it, hopefully. I mean, if I don't, you'll never see this video, so what does it matter, right? All right, so I'm gonna lighten this up a little bit. Get rid of some of those red lines. And I'll show you, if you can ever find these, why I don't use these. So if you really press hard, and then you want to make some changes. Yeah, see, it doesn't erase all the way. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but it leaves a slight impression. So one thing I need to do before I go too much further is I need to pull up a picture of what spawn looks like, since I don't read spawn regularly. So back, I had to pull up a picture of spawn. I had one that David Finch painted. At least it gives me an idea of what his costume looks like, though. I'm probably just going to do the cape wrapped around him, but I just want to make sure there was no details that I hadn't thought about or forgotten. It's been a while since I've read a Spawn comic, so thought it'd be a good idea to take a look and see what's there. Okay. All right, so get rid of these pencils. And I'm gonna get I use, what are these things called? These 2mm pencils, there's a brand name for these. I can't, Stedler? Is that their name? I have a couple of them. I think this is the only 2mm I have, though. I had some others, I sold them. I just didn't need, like, I had like 3 or 4, but I was like, I don't need that many. And so I got rid of them. Of course, if you've never seen these before, you have to put them in the sharpener and sharpen them. And I think my sharpener is about wore out too. It doesn't always seem to do a very good job. Yeah. Anyway, this is a 2H lid. I forgot where I kind of like it for when I'm doing my final pencils, because it doesn't smudge as bad as HBs, which is like your number 2 pencils, and it's still soft enough to, you know, feel like you're able to get some tone value in there. At least if it's something you plan to ink anyway. I probably wouldn't be my go-to pencil if I was trying to do a tonal drawing, but for what I'm doing here, works pretty good. So really need to see what Spawn's face and profile looks like. I guess I can use that there as sort of a guide. Hopefully that's still accurate, hasn't been changed. This is a reprint of Spawn #1 from the 90s. I forgot what year this printed, the original issue. I was like everybody else. I went and bought my copy because Todd McFarlane, man, whatever Todd put out, man, we had to have. Todd wasn't a great writer at that point. I'd noticed that in his Spider-Man series, that while the art was amazing, the story was a little lackluster. Now, that's not to say that I think I'm better than Todd. I'm just saying that at that point, he was not a great writer. Everybody starts somewhere, right? So, I haven't read anything lately, but I'm sure he's way better now. Lots of practice. So, there we go. And once I get this head drawn, the rest of it gets pretty simple, because we're just drawing sharp angles for that cape. But I gotta get this head right. I'm gonna have to twist it just to get my hand. Yeah, okay. Oh, that looks semi-right. Figure if I can get this part of the mask right, then I can come back and draw the rest of the head around it, and it'll look okay. Of course, I could figure wrong and get the whole thing screwed up. Anyway, so if you've never watched one of my videos before, which there's not many at this point, at the time this has been recorded, I think I've only done maybe 3 or 4 videos. I do not intend to be on camera. There's no real reason for me to. I'm not that good looking. So, you know, my looks are definitely not going to cause anybody to want to watch this channel. Not going to do a lot of talking, mainly because I tend to say things that piss people off, and probably end up getting my channel banned on YouTube, because I won't follow the narrative that they like to hear. I give my opinion whether anybody else likes it or not. Been a very independent thinker most of my life, so I don't do too much of that herd mentality. That'll work. I don't think I'm that great of an artist. I think I'm a good artist. I don't think I'm great. I'm obviously better than some people and far worse than many others. And so I just do the best I can every time I sit down, and if I screw something up and I have to throw it in the trash or start over, I take it as a learning experience. I don't, you know, berate myself and go, oh, you suck as an artist, you might as well give up and quit. And I really wanted to draw comic books when I was younger as a full-time living. But people kept telling me, oh, you won't be able to make a living, you're not good enough. And this was coming from family members, so I made the mistake of listening to them, and I shouldn't have. And then the second thing I shouldn't have done is acted on what they said. Now, they're responsible for what they said, but I am 100% responsible for taking that in and acting on what they said. I should have chosen my own path and pursued it, but I didn't, and got married, and we had our first son, and I needed a career, and ended up in law enforcement on basically a whim. Really kind of came out of the blue. And it is the only job that I've ever had that I had a boss that I actually liked. I've never liked working for anybody. I've always hated it. But that one I actually enjoyed. I think it was because it was in a small town in Florida. And, you know, you pretty much, once you got in and you got in the car, other than answering calls or, you know, the occasional note from, it was a small department, so you get a note straight from the chief, go do this, go do that, you know, every now and then. But for the most part, you just kind of did your own thing for your shift. You know, if you worked traffic or you, which I was not a big traffic guy, I didn't write many tickets. I think if I wrote 3 tickets in a month, I wrote a lot. I was not a ticket writer. But, you know, I think it was that concept of just being on my own that let me really enjoy being in law enforcement when I was younger. I didn't have to answer to anybody specifically. You know, you do your calls. If a call comes in, work your traffic accidents, your burglary reports, go break up the fights at the bar, etc., etc. But for the most part, you know, you just kind of kept to yourself and just patrolled. You know, our chief was really big on patrolling and keeping a police presence in the neighborhoods, and so that's what we did. And I would drive for pretty much a solid 8 hours every shift. And one night I drove so much that I had a note the next evening when I came in for my midnight shift to thanking me for patrolling, but please not put that many miles on the car because they had to last to the next budget meeting. So, yeah, you know, don't overdo it. So anyway, but I got into law enforcement. I was kind of late in life doing it. I was close to 30. And I did it for, I don't know, 6 years or so. I did law enforcement down in Central Florida, this small town. And when I got out, there's a lot of reasons why I got out, but once I got out, I moved away from Florida and I took a job in sales for a company, and I sucked. Man, I couldn't make any money selling furniture. And so that job didn't last very long at all, and we hated where we were living. And so my wife and I moved again and moved to where we currently live, which is in South Alabama. I had family there. And I got another job in sales, this time selling electronics, and that wasn't bad. I actually did a pretty decent living. And I did a good enough living that my wife was able to stay home and take care of the 2 boys by that point. We had our oldest, and then our second son had come along. And then I did that for a couple of years, and I saw the writing on the wall with the company. They were doing things. I was like, this company is not going to survive. And so I bought my very first business, a comic book shop that was in trouble, and I bought it out. And I knew nothing about running a business. I knew comic books, but I sure didn't know anything about running a business. And my entire business plan was cheers, you know, so that if you've ever been in a comic book shop, you know that a lot of times when you walk in, no one will speak to you. They just sort of grunt, especially old-fashioned comic book shops. And so this was late 90s, early 2000s. And I decided, well, I'll just go with the idea opposite of that and memorize everybody that comes in's name. And so when they walked in the door, I called my name like Norm, like they did in Chairs. And that was my business plan, the beginning and end of it, right there. But that's what I did, and we almost went under several times in the first year or two. By grace, and not by my genius, but by grace alone, we survived. And I ended up doing that. I think it was, I sold the business a year or two after 9/11. And that was back when eBay had got started, and I was selling stuff on eBay to help supplement the store sales. And and that was back when eBay, people would mail you a check. That shows you how old it was. They would mail you a check for the product, and then if they mailed you a cashier's check, you could send it out right away. But if they mailed you a personal check, then you would have to hold it for like 10 business days before you mailed the product. There was no online payments. Man, that has changed. And because I sell on eBay now too, it's part of my business model. And so we did that, and then when I sold that, and I sold it because I noticed that I was having to work like every single weekend, all kinds of hours we sold Warhammer 40K, we sold Magic, we sold comic books, we sold role-playing games, and I wanted to create an environment where people could come and hang out, and it was cool. We had people there, and they were buying stuff, and we had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I was around people who liked the same kind of stuff I liked, which was different because no one in my family liked comic books but me. Everybody thought I was weird, and so it was cool being around people that had the same kind of ideas and same kind of enjoy the same stuff I did. But then I realized I was missing my boys' lives, because I was having to work every single weekend. And, they were growing up really fast. And I was like, man, I don't want to miss this. I'll never get this again. So I was going to close the business, just close it down, and some guys came up and wanted to buy it. So they bought me out. And I moved on, and I needed a job, and, I knew I didn't want to work, for an employer like, where you punch a clock 9 to 5. I mean, I would if I had to, but God, I didn't want to do that. What a horrible way to make a living. And if that's the way you make your living, I'm sorry, it just doesn't work for me. So I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. And some people I knew, they said, why don't you try real estate? And I was like, okay, you set your own hours, 100% commissions, but you work when you want to work, and more work you put in, the more money you potentially can make, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, awesome, let's do that. And so I got my real estate license, hardest test I ever took in my life, no joke. And did the real estate thing for a while, and I hated that. I didn't really mind the real estate work, honestly. Actually, I enjoyed some aspect of it, especially the contract stuff. That was a lot of fun to work on that stuff. But the people, oh my word, the people. Most real estate agents are just scum. I can say that because I knew them. And if they hear me say it, call me and I'll tell you to your face. I ain't afraid. So anyway, I did that, and for several years, about 4 or 5, I think. And I've always been a creative person, drawing, writing, painting, and I'd kind of stopped drawing. I hadn't drawn for like 20 some odd years. But another thing I'd done was photography, and I picked up a camera again and started playing around with it and had fun. And so got this wild hair at my butt to do photography, mainly commercial photography, so I could photograph for magazines and stuff. And I started it and completely failed. Well, I won't say completely. predominantly failed. It was a royal disaster. And I really put my family through a really bad time trying, because I was just so stubborn that I just had to prove I could do this, even though I was not getting enough work to support everybody. And my poor wife, man, I don't know why she didn't kill me. But anyway, I did do some cool stuff. I got to photograph for Ferrari magazine out of the UK. And there was a guy in Nashville, which is north of us, that had bought a very limited edition Ferrari, and they wanted pictures of him in the car for their magazine. I got to go up there and photograph him and got to ride in the car, which was really cool. I'm not a big car guy, but I watched Magnum PI. I can appreciate a Ferrari. And then when I got done with that, I did that, and when I realized it was just not producing enough income for me to be a good husband, I started looking at some other things I could do that would make money. And I started selling on eBay, and just, whatever I had around the house. And being a comic book nerd and Star Wars nerd and Star Trek nerd and all the nerd groups you can think of, I had a bunch of stuff I had from the store that I still had, and just some random things laying around the house, and come to find out they were worth more money than I realized. And so I started selling those, and then my wife and I started working together on it, and we were selling stuff, buying stuff and then reselling it online. And then we opened up some antique booths in a local antique mall here in the South, Alabama, and that was making a little bit of money. And then about 3 years ago, had an opportunity to buy a big comic book collection. We bought a few at a thrift store, but opportunity showed up to buy a massive collection, maybe 20, 30,000 comic books. That included an Amazing Spider-Man #1 and a Hulk #1, first appearance of Wolverine, just the list goes on. And it took all the money I had. I mean, literally, I drained every bank account that I had. It was a huge risk in the sense that, we still had our personal account that we paid our bills and bought groceries out of. I didn't touch that money, but all of our savings was in there. All the money, because I'm self-employed, I would set aside money to pay my taxes with, and I drained the tax account, which I knew I was going to have to pay back, or I was going to be making installment payments to the government. And then I had to borrow a few $1,000s from my son, my youngest son, who was living with us, because this is right after COVID. And he graduated college right when COVID broke, and the jobs he had lined up fell through because everybody shut everything down. And so he had a little money saved up, and he loaned me like $2,000 just so I could buy this collection. And anyway, it was a big risk, and so I bought the collection, and was going to send Spider-Man 1 to CGC, and then send that off to be sold at Heritage. And then I was going to send Hulk 1. I did, because I couldn't afford to send them both. One, I couldn't afford the grading, and two, if they got lost, I was sunk. Because there were some other books in there, but those other books was not going to accumulate the value of what Hulk 1 and Spider-Man 1 was. And so guy north of us, about 2 hours north, found out I had them through the grapevine, and he contacted me, and he ended up offering me a cash for both Hulk 1 and Spider-Man 1 that was almost double what I paid for the whole collection. And so I could have made more money if I had gone through my plan and sent them off to be graded and sent them to auction, but my bank account was empty, and I took the money. And from that, I built a new business where I sell comics, just back issues and stuff like that. And I sell online, and I have a local booth at a retail store. And that's how I got started. And I've been very blessed. I'm very grateful. I was able to pay off a huge amount of unsecured debt. And so I'm pretty much debt free except for the house. So I am very, very blessed and very grateful. And it's nothing that I did, you know, it's not because I'm smart or anything. It's just because favor was shown in my life, and I greatly appreciate it. All right, so I've been talking for a little bit, and I've kind of got the line art laid in for this spawn here. So I think what I'm gonna do is pause the video here and pull out some ink pens and get ready to start inking. And then I'm probably not going to talk while I'm inking like I've been gabbing doing this part, because this was simple. This, you know, I'm not doing any anatomy or anything, you know, just drawing lines. That's easy. But the next part, laying in the inks and stuff, inking is an area I struggle with still. I never have really liked my inks. So I want to make sure I lay this in right. So if I decide not to go to acrylics, I have a good base of inks to work from. So we'll pause here and we'll pick up here in just a few minutes. It'll be a separate video. I'll link it all together. You won't even notice. Why am I telling you far? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and go for the gusto and make this a painting. To do that, I need to mask this and this so I can spray paint this. So to make a mask, I'll use this. Comes from Hobby Lobby. This is great tracing paper. It's thick, good quality. And what I use to make masks with. So, all right, let's get to making masks. Doesn't have to be perfect, but okay, so I'll stop the video here. Let's see the mask. There's the mask. And now I'll cut this out and use painter's tape to hold it down. So I'll stop the video here and do the cutouts and we'll come back. All right, so late last night, 'cause this is early in the morning now, I did the spray painting, and what I did was I made masks out of tracing paper from Hobby Lobby and masked out all the different pieces. Made one for the eye, the dot of the eye, and then for Spawn himself. As you can see, they pretty much last through one transaction. After that, once you pull them up, you're probably never going to get them down. You have to make a whole new one. But it does work really well. So I did the blues here and then black over it, and then I peeled it up and did a little bit more black because I want Spawn to be sort of a gray tone, and I wanted that texture and splatter effects in there before I start laying in my solid blacks and so forth. So anyway, something happened I've never happened before. When I brought it into my desk and I touched it, the blue started powdering off. And let me show you what I use. So this is the paint I use. It's Iron Lac, I guess is the way you say it, acrylic spray paint. I buy this at Hobby Lobby. And I've used this stuff before, and it's never done this. It's never powdered off. So I don't know if it's environmental or something, the paper, or just the fluke of the day. I don't know. I don't understand why it did that. But this is one of the things that makes me enjoy traditional work way more than I enjoy doing digital, is because if something goes wrong on digital, you just Control-Alt-Z or delete the layer and do it again. Here, I actually have to figure out the problem. And so I tried putting a heavy coat of workable fixative over it, and it was still powdering. And so what I took was one of these brushes and just swept it and just knocked everything loose off that was going to come off. And that gave me this very unusual but unique patterning effect. The neat part of that is I would have never, personally, I don't think I'm that good of an artist that I could have created this kind of effect on my own. So once that was done, I took Ultra Matte Medium, which is this stuff here. And I could use clear gesso, but this is what I grabbed. And I poured a little bit on a palette and just lightly brushed and left it overnight. And so now it is dry and the paint's not coming off. So I should be able to work on top of it now without lifting anything up. So what I want to do now is I want to end this video and make it a two-part, because this is taking longer than I imagined. And got to clean up around my desk because I have blue paint powder everywhere, and I do not want it to contaminate any future colors or get on something I would not want it on, like the inside of the book by accident or something like that. So this will be the end of this portion, and then I'll record and do the next portion, and we'll go through the entire painting process. So if you stuck around this long, thanks. Hope you're not that bored. And we will pick up later when I start painting the actual piece. Later.